Hey, special educators. Welcome to Teach, Taskbox, Inspire, the podcast dedicated to making your job as a special education teacher easier by making your instruction more fun for you and your students. Inside each episode, you'll learn how to get the most use out of your task boxes in the classroom. I'm your host, Lisa Holliday from Chalkboard Superhero, a veteran special education teacher passionate about empowering you with purposeful teaching strategies, helpful tips and tricks, and other classroom management tools that will help you thrive in your role. Let's get started with today's episode.
Hey there, special educators, and welcome back to another and final episode to Teach, Taskbox, Inspire. Today's episode is going to be a little different. I wanted to take a few minutes to say thank you so much and to share an update from the heart. Between work, life, and everything in between, I've made the decision to take a break from releasing new episodes here on Teach, Taskbox, Inspire. If you've been here from the beginning through classroom setups, task box ideas, behavior strategies, and those late night pep talks, please know how incredibly grateful I am for you. Every download, every message, every share, it's meant the world to me. And at this point, I don't have a set date for when I'll be back, but the beauty of this podcast is that there are now over 100 episodes waiting for you, filled with strategies, stories, and inspiration to support you in your classroom. Whether you're new here or a longtime listener, I really hope you'll go back and re-listen to your favorites or maybe discover an episode you missed along the way. In the meantime, I would so love for us to stay connected. You can still find me on social media at Chalkboard Superhero. That's where I'll continue sharing classroom ideas, task box inspiration, and updates on what's to come next. You can also visit my Teachers Pay Teacher store to keep learning and connecting. So just a few highlights, because I love highlights, but if there's one thing this podcast is known for, it's visuals. From episodes like Visual Boundaries, all the visual supports, and visuals are not just for autism, the message has always been clear. Visuals are not extra, they are essential. Visuals create independence, visuals reduce anxiety. Visuals give students a sense of control in a world that often feels so overwhelming. And one of my favorite reminders that came from these episodes is this. If a student is constantly asking, "What's next?" asking what to do, or refusing tasks, it's usually not a behavior problem. It's a structure problem. And once teachers start using visuals consistently, everything shifts. And I'm talking, I always point out to my kids, my friends, my family, my husband, every time we're out and about in the community, I always point out visuals. And I always say, look, there's a visual right there. Look, even when you're going through an airport or going through the mall, you have visuals everywhere. So use them. Another huge cornerstone of this podcast has always been behavior. Episodes on reinforcement, power struggles, aggression, replacement behaviors, things like sensory needs and functions of behavior all come back to one truth. Behavior is communication. Students are not trying to be difficult. They are trying to tell us something they don't have the skills yet to say. And one of the most powerful mindset shifts I've ever shared on this podcast is this. You don't fix behaviors by controlling kids. You fix behaviors by teaching skills. Once you see behaviors through that lens, your classroom changes. And so does your stress level. All right, task boxes, independent work systems, errorless learning. This is kind of where Teach, Taskbox, Inspire really found its heartbeat and where it all began. We didn't create these systems so students can just stay busy. We created them so students could feel capable, right? One of my favorite things I've ever said on this show is, if an adult is doing most of the work, the student isn't learning. They're complying. Independence doesn't happen by accident. It happens through intentional systems, consistent routines, and materials designed for success. Some of the most emotional episodes I've ever recorded had nothing to do with curriculum and everything to do with you, the listener. Burnout, work-life balance, staying past contract time, setting boundaries, letting go of guilt. And the message has always been the same. You are allowed to take care of yourself. You are not a better teacher because you stay late. You are not more dedicated than anyone else just because you're exhausted. The best teachers are sustainable teachers. So let's get that straight. One of the greatest gifts of this podcast has been the community. All of you, my listeners. The messages from teachers who have felt seen or heard. The DMs from paraprofessionals who felt valued for the very first time. The emails I get from brand new teachers who said, I don't feel so scared anymore. I actually feel prepared. Teaching can feel so isolating. Special education especially can feel so lonely. But this podcast has always been about reminding that, you're not doing this alone. We're here together. And that kind of brings me to today. Between work and everything going on in my personal life, I really did have to kind of take a break from releasing new episodes. I don't know if you know this, but from the back end, creating a podcast and maintaining it and doing all the editing and uploading, it's a lot of work. I loved doing it in the beginning, but I've run out of time. But I do know that there are those 100 episodes waiting for you. They're full of real talk, real classroom struggles, real stories, and strategies that you can use almost immediately. So if this podcast has ever helped you feel more confident or more supported or maybe just inspired, then every second of creating it has been worth it. I am so incredibly grateful for every single one of you who've tuned in, who've listened or shared and downloaded, or, reached out, finding me on social media. This podcast has been one of the most meaningful parts of my teaching journey. And this is not goodbye. It's just, I'll see you later. And if you want to stay connected with me, please visit my social media at Chalkboard Superhero or on Teachers Pay Teachers. I'm just going to be showing up in a different way for now. Thank you so much for being part of this community. Thank you for the work you do for our kids. And thank you for believing in independence, structure, compassion, and growth. Until next time, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Teach, Taskbox, Inspire. I hope you've gained some tips and motivation to fuel your week ahead. If you're ready to explore more strategies for empowering your students as independent learners, be sure to dive into my free training at chalkboardsuperhero.com/training. And don't keep all this knowledge to yourself. Share this episode with your special education teacher friends who could use some motivation and inspiration. One more thing before you go. If you're finding this podcast helpful and want to show support, head to Apple Podcasts and leave your rating and review. Until next time, keep teaching, taskboxing, and inspiring.